For the better part of my lifetime, the Jacksonville Jaguars have really been nothing more than a possibly good team that always seems to falter halfway through the year and end up being one of the bottom feeders in the league. And I mean, since the turn of the century, the Jacksonville Jaguars have played in 24 NFL seasons and have had a winning record in exactly 6 of them. A percentage of 25% of their seasons since the year 2000. They've had a winning record. And in 2024, it was not one of those years. They went 4-13. It was probably one of the more embarrassing years that Jacksonville has had in a while, considering they thought they had their quarterback, they thought they had a defense, they thought they had the playmakers around the quarterback, and they didn't put it all together, yet again. And after this year, it was not very surprising to see that there was going to be major changes at the head coaching and front office level. Jacksonville fired Doug Peterson, they fired Trent Baalke, and they replaced each of those guys with first-year candidates at each of those positions. You have Liam Cohen come over as the head coach / offensive coordinator, the same role he held in Tampa Bay under Todd Bowles. And you have James Gladstone come over as the GM. He was a major piece of the scouting department for the LA Rams for the last 9 years, I believe. So these are two guys who, even though they are in their first years, they have a experience of not only working in the NFL. These two guys, Liam Cohen and James Gladstone, spent the better part of almost half a decade together with the LA Rams. And they do have proven track records. Liam Cohen as offensive coordinator with the LA Rams was, they were very successful with him there. And with him in Tampa Bay, they were very successful there as well. There's a very proven track record of him being able to get outside targets, very productive years. You think about names like Cooper Kupp, you think about names like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, even developing younger players. You look at what Liam Cohen has done. He helped turn Cade Otton into a very good tight end, and he got very good years out of Rachaad White and Bucky Irving in the backfield. And so, as far as Liam Cohen is concerned, I think it was a pretty good hire. And as far as James Gladstone is concerned, I think that's a pretty good hire as well. LA has been one of the teams that, in their past, the Rams have traded many of their early first, second, or even third round picks for actual players in the NFL. And one of the reasons they were able to do that is their scouting department did a very good job of using the picks that they had and getting very talented players later in the draft. And this is something that Jacksonville is sorely needing, because outside of their beginning picks, like first or second picks in the NFL draft, Jacksonville has not done the best job of filling out their roster with day 2 or day 3 selections. And so you hope that somebody with the track record like James Gladstone, even though he is very young, he's the youngest GM in the NFL by 4 years, you just hope that this is the beginning of turning this franchise all the way around. The very first move personnel-wise that Jacksonville made this offseason was trading Christian Kirk to the Houston Texans. And we don't know yet if it was a good move or not, right? It probably was the right salary cap move given Christian Kirk's contract. But you're trading Christian Kirk to your division rival, and you're hoping in those 2 games a year where he's going to play against your team that he doesn't make you look like an idiot. As far as that trade goes, time will tell, because, it was a 6th or 7th round pick going from Houston. It's not like you're sitting there and saying, we got a haul for Christian Kirk, but you got the money off of your books, and that was really the main goal. The other moves from the Jacksonville Jaguars in terms of free agency, they signed guys like Patrick McCarry, Robert Hainsey, Chuma Edoga, and Fred Johnson as either probable starting pieces like Patrick McCarry and Robert Hainsey to guys who can be depth pieces like Chuma Edoga and Fred Johnson. They also make some other signings. You get De'Ami Brown, Hunter Long, and Johnny Munt into your skill group of players. And you also make some additions in the secondary with guys like Jordan Lewis and Eric Murray. I do think some really talented players like Evan Ingram and Andre Sisco went out the door for your team this year. I also think other guys like Tim Jones, Josh Reynolds, Jeremiah Ledbetter, those are guys that just fill out your depth chart pretty well. It's going to be interesting to see how Mac Jones does in San Francisco. If this is a guy that ends up playing at all, either due to injury or maybe he gets traded somewhere else. But he's going to a very friendly QB system in San Francisco. So, I mean, we could be looking at them losing Mac Jones for a $4 million contract, even though they have Trevor Lawrence, and everybody knows Trevor Lawrence is better than Mac Jones. But the point of the conversation would be, Mac Jones, we see him with Kyle Shanahan do all these things, and Trevor Lawrence can't get anything done, no matter who his quarterback, or no matter who his head coach is, or offensive coordinator is, or whatever the case would be. Will be an interesting conversation that could be had in the future. But for now, all it's going to be known as is the Jacksonville Jaguars losing their backup quarterback to a team who signed him to be the backup quarterback. So it's probably not a big deal. Overall, I think free agency, yes, you lose Evan Ingram. Yes, you lose Andre Sisco. But there is something to be said for this team lost their last 18 of 23 games going back into the 2023 year when they had an absolute collapse in the end of the year where they had a firm grip on the AFC South division and they lost it. And then in 2024, it wasn't even close. They were one of the worst teams in the league. Offensively, they were terrible, and they were just a bad team. So when you lose guys that are talented like Evan Ingram, Andre Sisco, yes, they're very talented. Evan Ingram isn't really young anymore, but he's probably at his peak. And Andre Sisco is probably playing at his peak, but this team was still 4-13. So I'm not going to hold a lot of stock in those players for Jacksonville's case. Obviously, it's going to be the draft for the Jacksonville Jaguars where they're going to improve the most. They have the number 5 overall pick. They have 10 picks overall, 4 picks in the first 88. They have a pretty good chance to get a really good player. And if they get 2 or 3, they're going to be well on the way to actually improving and becoming a division contender year after year. I think it's pretty obvious for Jacksonville. You need to get a receiver. Maybe you even look at getting a tight end, but probably offensive line, because even though you get Makari, you get Hainsey, I don't know who you really can rely on the offensive tackle position. They trade Cam Robinson last year, and you have Walker Little as well as Anton Harrison. I'm willing to bet Will Campbell's probably better than both of those guys. And even if he's not, move him into guard. You just lost Brandon Scherf, probably, unless he re-signs on a team-friendly deal. So I think it's Will Campbell. If he's not available, best receiver available. Maybe Travis Hunter. That'd be kind of funny. Or wait until round 2 if you're lucky enough to see somebody you really covet at that position, then you can get them. Overall, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars, while they're not in a prime position to contend anytime soon, they do have the chance after a really good 2025 offseason, if they finish that through the draft, they have a pretty good chance at contending this year for the AFC South before Houston gets better, before Tennessee gets good, and while we're still trying to figure out Indianapolis's case, Jacksonville could still make a run this year, even though it probably wouldn't be anything crazy. It'd be a 10-7 year where you beat the Houston Texans in week 18 to win the division. just little things like that. You have a good year to build off of. For a while now, it's been, like I said, 18 of the last 23 games they've lost. So it's a pretty good time to just kind of make changes and see if you can make things better. So I think it's a B plus year this year. You don't lose anything crazy. You reset the books a little bit through the Christian Kirk trade and allowing some guys to leave. And you're set up pretty well for the draft, I think. You're not going to be getting the best player available, probably, like the number one player in the draft. But you're going to get somebody pretty good. And that's always a good thing to do. So, yeah, B plus year so far.